This video is all about how and why I transitioned from being an avid pad user who hated tampons to someone who uses a menstrual cup. Throughout this video, I'm going to be not speaking vaguely because I think it's important that we discuss what this is. Periods and things like that is public health. It doesn't make sense to make it so taboo. I personally have always kind of felt uncomfortable talking about this with people. It actually took my husband, who did a project about period products in college and talked about the public health elements of it as well, how important it was to have these conversations with people and not shy away from it. So I will not be speaking vaguely throughout this video, so if that's going to make you uncomfortable, feel free to click off, but I just don't want there to be a lot of confusion, so I will be speaking quite bluntly. Having this kind of literacy and understanding of your body and just the relation between you and your period and the menstrual products you use, it's just an important thing to know and to feel comfortable about no matter what age you're at. For me, it was 20, but whatever age, it's just such an important topic, and I hope that this video is helpful in at least kind of starting that conversation. Since each person's experience and transition is a little bit different with period products and just periods in general, I wanted to give you guys a little bit of context about my personal journey, and then I'll get into answering some questions that you guys left me on Instagram. And if you do not follow me yet on there, be sure to do that. About a year and a half ago, I was diagnosed with lean PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome. And the way that that kind of affects me when it comes to my period is I have had very few periods since beginning my menstrual cycle at 13. Each year I would have anywhere between 2 to 6 periods, and usually no more than that. In general, periods were just a very strange thing for me because they didn't happen as frequently as they did for others. I despised tampons. I literally have a memory of being, I think I was 18 at the time, and we were going to the beach and my period came and I needed to put in a tampon, and I remember being in the beach bathroom and I was so frustrated and so annoyed that I couldn't do it that I just started crying because I didn't find it comfortable, and I was just aggravated with how the product was. And part of that is just user error, and I think I just in general didn't really know my body very well. It was just a very frustrating process. That kind of shows you where I was before I switched into the cup, which is why it was such a dramatic switch. Except for occasions where I was swimming or in the water or something like that, I was always wearing pads, which, like most people using pads, I wouldn't necessarily say I enjoyed wearing pads because they were, they smell a little bit and you feel it and you're sitting in it, and it's not necessarily a comfortable product to use. And then on top of that, obviously, as I was learning more about the environment, I was feeling a little bit more guilty about having to use something so disposable when I was starting to learn that there were more options available to me. I literally bought bulk pads and liners before starting college, and they lasted me from freshman year to senior year because of how infrequent my periods were. So once I was getting towards the end of that, I didn't really want to repurchase more pads because I just didn't want to keep doing that. And so that's when I decided that I would want to try out the menstrual cup, and I was quite determined that I would figure it out. So I gave myself a lot of grace and kind of a learning period, which I will talk to you guys about later on, but there is a huge learning curve in it, and so you have to kind of go into it giving yourself some grace and patience, because some people get it their first try and it's fantastic, but others like me, it took quite some time and I went through a lot of frustration trying to figure it out, but in the end it's so much better. I feel like the more natural comparison is tampons versus menstrual cup, and for me, something that I noticed once I started using them properly that I preferred menstrual cups over tampons was the fact that when you put in a tampon, it soaks up everything, it kind of dries everything, so when you're pulling it out, it's a little bit more painful. Again, that's my experience, but not for everyone. And then also as your period is ending, you can't really use it because there's not as much lubrication and blood and things like that for it to soak up, and so it just ends up being a dry cotton swab inside of you. Versus a menstrual cup gives the opportunity for all of that natural lubrication and the blood and everything to kind of still be there and be held, and it collects the leak and everything, and then when you're pulling it out, it works with your body instead of against your body, if that makes sense. I also noticed, especially since I was an avid pad user, for me the smell was a lot less intense and I enjoyed not having that waft every time I had to go to the bathroom. Here. So I'm going to show you guys my menstrual cup, and I don't have one that's like new or anything like that. So there is some staining since organic cups come without any like coloring or anything like that. They come clear, so they get a little bit stained. So it looks a little bit more like murky brown, but it's natural. It is clean. It's sterilized. It's stained. Unlike tampons, again, I'm going to be quite not vague. So unlike tampons, going to the bathroom in any number of ways will not be an unpleasant experience, because this is nice and tucked away, so you don't have to worry about anything being mixed up with the string of the tampon. I personally chose the OrganiCup, and the reason was I was kind of researching different options, and theirs came up a lot, and I was very interested in their company. And then they had a buy one get one free sale, and so I decided I'd purchase it, and I asked my friend if she'd be willing to try it out with me, and that way I kind of had someone to go along the process with. And because my periods didn't come as frequently, she'd have a couple times to test it out probably before my period would ever come. And so she went ahead and used it a couple times, loved it, and so then that gave me a little bit more confidence as well to go ahead and try it. I'd say they're pretty average when it comes to price point, and they do have a few like buy one get one free sales, and I think you can get like a code and get 25% off and give that to your friends and things like that. But if I can, I'm going to try to link a discount code or something below if I can get that at some point. It came packaged like this, so all of the instructions and details about it are all on the packaging. So as you open it, and guys, I have kept this packaging for a couple of years now because I knew I wanted to do this video eventually, and I'm finally doing it, so I'm very excited about that. But yeah, so all of the instructions on care for it and how to use it is all throughout here. And then of course it comes with like a little container for it, and then inside is the menstrual cup. This I found to be an awesome sustainable option, that they don't use literally any plastic in their packaging except for the tape. So I just loved that they didn't even have paper, like excess paper. They just had all of their instructions on the packaging. One of the questions that I received was, what is the typical price point? Menstrual cups range in price from about $20 to $40 US, and that lasts you for quite a few years depending on how you care for it and things like that, versus like obviously tampons and pads you have to dispose of after each time unless you're getting the reusable pads or underwear. But even those, I would say, probably end up costing quite a bit more. I just recently bought some NYX period underwear, which I'm going to do probably a video on later, but I haven't actually gotten a chance to try it out yet. My husband is in a meeting right now. He's currently asking a question. I don't want his biology class thing to be interrupted by my period comments. So as far as reusable period underwear, generally each one will range $15 to $30, maybe more, $20 to $40. So unless you're doing laundry each and every day during your period, you're still gonna probably need to buy somewhere between 3 and 4 pairs, which obviously in contrast to a menstrual cup, you're just using one and washing it and then putting it right back in. So in that sense, it's going to be a lot cheaper going with this. How to get it in is a very common question, and one that I personally was very concerned about before getting it. There are quite a few different folds, which I will link some videos down below that go into all of those in detail. But I personally there's quite a few different folds. There's like a 7 fold, which is what I personally use. There is like a C fold. And this is the fold that I thought I would use. This one right here, it seemed like the least invasive and seemed nice, but it turned out that one didn't actually work for me. So I will say one of the great things about like how to get it in is just watching videos and then kind of learning your own body, because like I said, I thought I would be using this fold. Like that just seemed like the smallest area and everything, but it turned out that this fold actually ended up working the best. So yeah, kind of the theme throughout this entire video is just using a menstrual cup really helped me start to understand my own anatomy and like where my cervix was, where this was going, because I've even heard people say, and I thought this too, of like, well, what if it gets lost? And the reality is it can't go past your cervix. There's like a very limited place where it can go, and it might be like a little bit beyond where you want to grab, but with just a little bit of like pushing and stuff like that, you can easily push it down a little bit and grab it and then like pull it out from there. So My friend actually gave me this really helpful piece of advice, and this just ensures once you do have it in, making sure it won't have leaks. So goes in and then pops open, right? This is kind of hard to show you guys. So say you've put it in and it's open mostly, but there is like a little indentation or something. You won't know that's there unless you kind of feel for it, because you can't just look at it and see. So what my friend recommended is just kind of slide your finger up, and if you feel around the ridge down here, you start to kind of slide up and you'll start to feel if like there's little indentations. And so what you can do is you just kind of tug a little bit, maybe twist, and that'll pop it open and make sure that it's fully open. So each time you put it in, however is comfortable for you, you'll need to kind of put your finger up and feel around the rim to make sure it has popped open all the ways, because in the times that it doesn't unfold all the way, those are the times that you'll end up with a little bit of leakage and things of that nature. So the better it is just to be sure. And so that's a method that I use and my friend recommended to me. In addition to it leaking, if you have it in and it's not fully unfolded, it also will just make it messier when you are trying to take it out, because your blood will get on it. So when you try to take it out, it'll be a little bit, not necessarily like more difficult, but it'll just be messier and more unpleasant. But there have been times that that's happened to me, and during those scenarios, I just hop in the shower and take care of it that way. I've only put it in it like a handful of times in public restrooms, because unless I'm traveling, usually I don't even need to do it during the workday. I put it in before the workday and then I take it out when I get home. But because it holds so much, I mean, it's pretty solid. Because it holds so much, I don't find the need to empty it out and re-put it in. In those cases, just have it on you, and I think putting it in generally is not super difficult in a public bathroom. You just kind of grab some toilet paper, wipe off your finger, and then go and wash it more carefully. So now I'll get into taking it out. For me personally, taking out was a much more difficult task, and I found it a little bit more painful during the learning curve. Once I kind of understood how to use it, then it really wasn't a big deal, and now I really don't have much issue with it. When you're getting ready to take it out, it has these little holes in it to kind of create a little bit of suction. And so my problem was I didn't reach up high enough to break the suction and then pull out. And so what I would end up doing is I would just pinch here and start pulling. You're just kind of taking the suction, and it's gonna hurt the area that you're pulling on. That was just user error and just took time for me to learn, because I would be in pain. Once I had like most of it out, I would just kind of grab the whole thing and yank it, which caused it a couple times to like spill on me, like on my hands or whatever, not everywhere. As I started to understand it better, the angle at which you pull it out, generally it won't spill anything. The highest I think I've ever had it is approximately to that line there. So even if you're pinching it to pull it out, you're not going to spill it. So once you're pulling it out, you just kind of reach up and make sure you kind of feel a little pop like that. Reach up, push it, and then you just start to kind of guide it down, and then once it's out, you just open it up and pour it in the toilet. And then you can reach over. I'm usually like reaching over, turn on the cold water, rinse it with cold water. That helps decrease some staining, and then rinse it with hot water and then put it back in. One thing that I do find incredibly beneficial about menstrual cups versus tampons is that it doesn't dry out the area. So your natural lubrication and blood and everything, it's not being kind of like sucked into something. It's all there, and so I find it helps like with the removal and inserting process, which you don't really have with a tampon. I know a lot of people really love tampons, so if that's like not a thing for you anyways, but like for those of you who may be pad users like I was, that's very helpful to know and made me realize like, oh, okay, this is quite a bit different, even though it still has like that same daunting element of like, I have to put something inside of me. When I was learning this process, I was a virgin, and so I really did not know that region well at all. And so again, that does make it quite daunting, but like I said at the beginning, this kind of topic is very important and it is public health. So virgin or not, it's good to know your own body, and if it took me using this to learn that, then that's fantastic. But once you gain some confidence, then I would recommend you can go out and do stuff in it. But I personally, the first couple of times, wanted to just do it during days that I was home all day. And that way, if there were any leaks or anything, no big deal. I was already home. I could like take it out and try it out again. And if there were any messes, I wasn't in a public bathroom trying to figure that out. I've only had to take it out once in a public restroom, and it was because I was traveling and it just was feeling like, okay, I think it's like a time that I need to change it out. In that scenario, I just kind of brought a bottled water with me because it was like a stall bathroom, so I couldn't just like go to the sink that was close by. So I took it out, I rinsed it out with the water bottle, and then I reinserted it, and it really wasn't a big deal. I was a little bit nervous just because it was my first time trying to do it, and I was like, if I do mess up, then like there's not really any redeeming that. It really wasn't a big deal at all. Occasionally, if I'm feeling particularly crampy, then I just don't want to be like trying to put it in or taking it out, and so on those days sometimes I just will wear a pad, or in this case now I'll be wearing my NYX underwear. But yeah, most of the time it feels great and you don't even notice it's in. But there have been occasions where I'm just like, I'm too crampy. For both inserting and removing a menstrual cup, it's important that you kind of loosen that area, because the more frustrated and intense you are and like stressed out you are, the tighter that region becomes, and then it's going to be harder to put it in and take it out, and that's going to cause a little bit more pain as well. Versus if you're a little bit more relaxed and not stressed out, then removal and insertion is a lot easier. Personally, I took it very slowly at first because I knew I would be pretty stressed out and frustrated and like tense. And so if I realized I was getting painful and I was stressed out, then I would stop and I'd try again later. In a similar way, if you're super crampy and you're really like clenched and like tight because of how much pain you're in, then during those cases I probably wouldn't force it and try it, because again, it's going to just be a little bit more uncomfortable and painful. Once it is in, I really don't notice it. So if you're okay with just kind of the initial pain of like, I'm crampy but I still want to put it in, go for it. So now that I've covered both putting it in and taking it out, I'm going to talk about when it's in. While it's in, I would recommend wearing a panty liner or something like that during your learning curve. And then I personally just recently bought some NYX underwear, and that way I can wear something that isn't disposable while I have this in, and if there are any leakages or anything like that, it will go into the NYX underwear and not into my clothing. The only time that I really feel the menstrual cup is if it has pivoted a little bit and just poked me the wrong way, and in those cases then sometimes I need to adjust it, but it really is kind of rare that it happens. And I personally have left the entirety of the stem on, but I know of people who just snip off the stem, and if you do that, then you really don't have to worry about any possibilities of it kind of poking you the wrong way. But even if you leave it on like I do, it is quite unusual for it to cause any discomfort. I personally pretty much never feel it. It just feels very comfortable because it's silicone and it just moves very naturally with your body. You can go swimming in it, you can do whatever. Like I have said, learning your own body, then you may need to do your research and try out a couple different menstrual cups. I got lucky and really loved the OrganiCup on my first try, but there are a lot of other brands and you may find that this one just doesn't work well for you and another one might work better. So just kind of give yourself some time to figure out which ones work well for you and figure out like where your cervix is and things like that, because you may want one that's like shorter or longer or bigger and things like that. So just again, know your flow, know your body. For cleaning the menstrual cup between uses, all I'll do is rinse it with cold water to just get anything that didn't just spill out inside and out, to try to eliminate any staining. Obviously it doesn't work perfectly, but this does get a lot darker sometimes. And then I'll rinse it with like hotter water just to feel like it's cleaning better, and also because when this is warmer to put it in, your body's not gonna tighten up as much as if you're trying to put in a freezing cold menstrual cup. And so once I do that, I'll go through my 5 days to a week of my period, and then at the end of that I'll put it into boiling hot water and let it boil for 5 minutes or so. And then that's the main cleaning that I do between periods. There are some specific menstrual cup washes and like soaps that you can purchase. So I might eventually invest in that, but I would never use just like a standard soap or anything, because this is something that is going to go inside of you and you need to be careful about what you're putting in that area, because it is a very sensitive area, and so you don't want any fragrances and things like that that are going to cause irritation. So again, sterilize it, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend just washing with anything willy-nilly. So water has been working great so far, but if I decide to buy like a wash, it will be one specifically for menstrual cups. Last thing I'm going to talk about is using a menstrual cup with an IUD. I personally now have an IUD. I got it when I was diagnosed with lean PCOS, and they essentially were saying because you don't have periods, the lining of your uterus doesn't shed itself as frequently as it should, which could cause problems. So that's why I got an IUD. So I talked to my gynecologist, was like, hey, I use the menstrual cup. Can I keep using that after I get my IUD? And I'm going to give you guys the same answer that she gave me. She said I wouldn't necessarily recommend it because she did have a patient who during removal did pinch the strings and pull out their IUD. So that is something to keep in mind, but she did say like I wouldn't say no to it either. But she said I wouldn't recommend using it for the first like 12 weeks. So if you have an IUD or you're getting an IUD, basically they have the day that they put it in, and then they have a checkup again to make sure it's still in the right position and everything. So after that, for that first checkup is usually when it's good to go, and it probably isn't going to accidentally expel or anything like that. There is like a chance during the first 12 weeks where it's a little bit more likely that your uterus is going to be like, I don't know what this is, and try to expel it. But after that point, usually you're good to go. So I am just trying to reiterate what she told me. So do not take this as like medical advice or anything like that. I am personally a very like gingerly careful person when I'm using this. And so I am quite careful when I put it in, and even when I'm removing it, I'm even more careful now. So what I'll do first is I kind of wiggle it down a little bit to make sure that I have it as low as possible without causing pain, because like I said before, if you just start yanking, it's gonna hurt. But I'll just kind of gingerly pull it down a little bit to make sure that I'm not just like grabbing my cervix or anything. And then from there, I'll kind of do what I told you guys earlier and kind of reach up and make sure I break that seal and then pull it out. But she did say the suction is not going to take out the IUD. If anything, it's going to be the pulling of the strings. It is a risk that you could end up pulling out your IUD, so decide for yourself. But I personally have decided that I still want to use it, and I'm just very careful. I personally will check my cervix height more frequently because I have my IUD, and I don't want to put it in if my cervix is quite low, just because that's gonna increase the chances of me pinching it. So before I had the IUD, I didn't check my cervix height every time I used it, but now I pretty much do. And if I notice I'm like, that seems a little low, then I won't put this in. If you guys have any further questions about specifically menstrual cups or like period underwear that I am just now trying, then be sure and leave a comment down below. What's your experience with menstrual cups, or what questions or concerns do you have if you're considering it? Sometimes I think that this period product is only like respected, I guess, in the sustainable community, but even if you don't care at all about sustainability, this is a fantastic product. It's great for your wallet, great for your budget. It's pretty minimal. You don't have to worry about having like 5 pads in your bag at all the times just in case. As long as you've got this on you, you are good to go. Literally, when it's not my period, I just have this in my purse, and how can you not love that? If you like this video, be sure and give it a thumbs up, because that lets me and the algorithm know that this kind of video is something that you enjoy, and I can make more of them in the future. I am super like passionate about this and love this product, and my husband does too, so honestly I should do a video of like all of his thoughts about it, because guys, my family, his in-laws, when they met him, my aunts were calling him period man. Like Superman, but period man, because of how much he cared about this. So if you guys would be interested in a video like that, definitely let me know, and I will try to convince him to do a video about menstrual products. Thank you guys so much for watching to the end. I know this was a whole lot of information, but this is a really important topic, and I definitely want to do my best at answering you guys' questions and just kind of creating a community that is okay with talking about this kind of stuff, because it's important and there's no point in shying away from it, because if you got a uterus, you got a vagina, this is something you just got to deal with. So may as well talk about it. Thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you next week.